Okay, so we are at the top of the hour. So I'd like to get our next speakers queued up to present to you. We're staying on the theme of equity and social justice here for the next hour, building off of Dr. Scorza's talk. So next I'd like to welcome Christine Lam and Tia Morita from LocateHateLA, and they're going to be talking to you about their program. So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks, Steve. So I'm Tia, I'm here with Christine, and you'll also be hearing a little bit from a colleague of ours, Rob, during this presentation. So happy to be speaking to everyone today during GS Day about our project called Locate Hate LA. I feel a little nervous, but also fortunate to be presenting after Dr. Scorza. I think certainly it's a good follow-up, or at least a follow-on to his talk. Many of the factors that he was pointing out as affecting kind of individual choice, and certainly taking history into account as well, I think definitely play a role on the topic that we're going to be talking about today, which is mapping hate crimes or hate incidents and the issues with reporting. So next slide. So let's just go ahead and you can move forward, Christine, and talk to you, just give you a little background on ourselves. So you might notice some familiar faces here, several folks working alongside from the county, like I mentioned, Christine. There's also Norman and John and Rob. And then we're also really lucky to be working with Jenna from the city of Long Beach and Sarah, who comes to us with many, many years of experience in communications and outreach and marketing. She currently works at Walt Disney, where she's also really involved with several different diversity initiatives. So kind of collectively, we have a lot of GIS experience, or GIS techies, but we also have experience in public policy, public administration, and communications. And really what brought us together is, isn't really just the recent increase in reporting about hate crimes against Asian Americans or AAPIs in the last year or so, but I would say in general just an alarming trend that we've noticed with hate speech, hate rhetoric, and just overall intolerance towards people of all different backgrounds. And so this is really a passion project of ours. It's something that we do outside of our normal 9-to-5 jobs. And yeah, just something that we're really excited to share with you all today. And hopefully, and we'll talk about it in the end, also get your support. And before I move on, I also want to just give this very special shout out to Esri for all of their support. A lot of the solutions that you will see here were made possible because of their support for our efforts. So thank you, Esri. Next. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a synopsis about the issue as we see it, and just kind of a little bit of a background. I think we'd all agree that hate is a problem, but it's not just that we're all think that hate is bad, but there are trends. There is a cycle about why this continues to be a really difficult issue to tackle. And so, just for a moment, put yourself in the shoes of a victim or even a witness. Maybe you have witnessed something and you see something that is pretty traumatic or that is really disturbing. Just that trauma alone, often from what I'm told from caseworkers, is enough to keep someone from wanting to report what happens to them. And then there's always a question of like, well, depending on your background, like, what are your rights? Or a lot of people don't even know what their rights are. There's fear of retaliation, there's fear of intimidation, fear of consequences. There's just, in general, maybe you've had, past bad experiences with law enforcement. And so that alone will also prevent you from reporting. And then a lot of the question that people ask is like, well, what happened to me, was it severe enough? Like, is it enough to even bother reporting? So that's kind of a very fuzzy area for a lot of people. And then, there's also language and cultural barriers, and I would say also technological barriers as well, to get your voice out there to report things that happen to you, whether or not it was a crime or just an incident. Next slide. And then if we think about things from a law enforcement perspective, law enforcement is very constrained by the law and legal definitions of what actually constitutes a hate crime, or if it's really just an incident. So in the state of California, in order to for something to be considered a hate crime, there's like very specific criteria that the incident has to meet. And unless it meets that criteria, and also, unless there's evidence or witnesses, it's very hard to prosecute. It's very hard to, take care of, or the issues that people are experiencing when it comes to hate. And then there's, of course, personal bias. And I would say that there's bias on both sides, from the victim's point of view and law enforcement. That always gets in the way. And last and not least, and this is probably this was the biggest eye opener for us, but law enforcement is also very constrained in the way that they can share their data and make it available. And therefore, when they do enter into data sharing agreements with government agencies or nonprofits, research institutions, there are often NDAs that go alongside of that constrict the way that hate crimes can actually be disseminated to the public. And so if you've ever wondered why it is, you will see statistics like hate crimes up, 30% in this county or whatever, but not very, or maybe you'll see the city of LA or something like that, but you won't ever really see a map, and you definitely won't really see hate crime data at the zip code level or block group level or even a city level. And it's a lot of the time that's to the data sharing restrictions. And so, that makes this issue very difficult, because law enforcement data is sometimes the most official data that we can get, and that exists. Next. So in between working both, in between the victims and law enforcement, then we have caseworkers, social workers, community groups, nonprofits, government agencies, and even the news media, right, whose jobs it is to kind of spread the word that this is a problem, inform the public, get information out there. But it becomes very, very difficult for them to paint a very clear picture. And a lot of the times, the way that we get that picture, it comes to us in the form of reports. And next slide. Very long form reports, stats, news blurbs, whether it's from federal agencies or what have you, you get a lot, maybe you'll get a lot of graphs, but again, if I'm coming from the public, if I'm just an everyday citizen, it doesn't really help me understand the magnitude of this issue. It doesn't answer for me, well, how close to me is this happening? How bad is it? Who is it happening to, and why? And so, what can I do about it? And so it kind of leaves, people, everyday people, in the dark, but at the same time, kind of perpetuates the issue as kind of out of sight, out of mind. So next. So being GIS techies, how can GIS help here? I think that we're not trying to say with this presentation that GIS is going to solve this, but I think, as Dr. Scorza was trying to indicate, GIS analysis, spatial analysis, and GIS technologies can certainly be and should be a part of the solution. And we definitely saw, for example, during COVID, and oh my God, in the last many, many months now, how powerful it is to have, a dashboard with a map that is out there to inform and mobilize people and the public. Next. So I'm kind of preaching to the choir. I don't really need to spend a lot of time on this slide, but we all know the power of GIS to illuminate patterns and distributions and hotspots. So really our idea is take this framework and this technology, apply it to address hate in our communities in a way that supports action and decision making, but also, next slide. We really want it to, we want to use it to help inform the public and to encourage people to report, but empower them to report in a way that, you know, if they, you know, remember victims have a really hard time reporting. If they do have the courage to report it, that they actually see what happens to their report, where does it go, and how can it get shared in a way that they know it's helping to inform others and allow others also to speak up. So next, Christine is going to jump into a demo of our site.
Thank you, Tia. I'll start with a hate incident web map we created. At the moment, you can tell that the map here is looking rather bare with hate incident locations, and each of these icons of the heart are hate incidents that have been reported. So here's an example of an incident that was reported through our site. This shows a basic summary of the victim's age, how the victim was attacked, and a brief description that was reported by the victim where it occurred, and a description of the perpetrator. So the goal here is to get enough folks to enter their data so that we can perform a heat map analysis and show low and high areas of reporting. So individual jurisdictions and council districts are aware of what is going on in their respective area. We have started creating predominance layers such as race, median household income, et cetera, in the back end, so we can establish trends and correlations in the future. The way that a victim or a witness can report a hate crime is through this survey here. The survey was created using survey 123, which is installed on our desktop, but users can report an incident on their mobile phone or on our home computer. So again, either a victim of the hate crime incident can report the incident. However, sometimes the victim does not want to relive the experience, as Tia mentioned earlier. So a friend or witness can report on behalf of the victim. Depending on who is entering the survey, the questions changes accordingly. So if you're a witness, you get a few more questions on the bottom of the survey. So I'll go through the survey, pretend as a victim entering data, and we'll just move forward from that. So I'm reporting myself as a victim of a hate crime incident. I'm not going to specify my real age, so I'll put 18 to 29, Asian American. There is a date function here that allows me to enter either today's date or the past date, but it will not allow me to select future current or a current date. So I'll just say the incident happened over the weekend. It was the morning of the 14th, and I will indicate a place below. So I'll zoom into an area, or I can either type in an address, but let's just, oops, keep zooming in. I'll pick a random location at this spot here. When I put in a marker, for example, in this location, the incident map calls the ArcGIS role geocoder. And to hide the exact location of the incident, let's say I entered my home, due to privacy restrictions that we want to ensure, the geocoder returns the nearest intersection by using a pull data statement in an XLS form in the backend that incorporates the reverse geocoder. So I will insert a home right here, and in a few words describe what happens. So I was attacked on the street, a male maybe spat at me, which, you know, I've read in the news that has happened before. describe the perpetrators: male, wearing a hoodie, maybe 5 feet, 10 inches, etc. And the type of crime that I believe occurred. I will select race or ethnicity and type of crime experienced. This will be since it was spitting, I'll select physical assault or battery. And then finally, I have to agree to the terms and conditions specified on our page and submit. So once that has been submitted, the web map should reflect the new data point on the fly. So, and it is, if I zoom in, it should be this location right here that I just entered. We also created a third component for LocateHateLA, and it is the dashboard where the public can view the web app that we created. I did not reload this, the viewer, so the point that was just entered is not being shown. So the dashboard displays the top 10 or so most recent hate crime reports, basic statistics, donut charts and bar graphs on the bottom. At the end of the day, it enables the public to monitor real-time incidents, inform their friends or neighbors with what's going on in their neighborhood, and have the ability to see trends. So out of the 12 hate crime incidents that have been reported, 7 were Asian Americans, 2 of the victims were Black or African American, and etc. The offense type here is breaking down as well. 42% being verbal harassment, 25% being physical assault or battery, and etc. And it also breaks down the victim's age here. So wrapping this dashboard up, it just provides a very powerful tool for the public to see what's going on in their neighborhood, as well as informing others. So next we'll hear from Rob Graham, who will talk about web scraping. We wanted to fill in some of the gaps in our data and maps. So we ventured into collecting hate crime incidents from news and social media. So Rob,
And
I
just
will
a polite 3-minute warning.
hand the talk over to you.
Okay, 3-minute warning.
Let me bring up the slides. Okay.
Cool. It looks like I cannot start my video. So I'll just, there we go. Great, thank you. We don't have too much time. I think you can go probably to the next slide. You know, I'm relatively new to this team, so thank you so much, Tia and Christine and Norman and everyone for getting this started. Excited to work on this. We've started, you know, we've seen the gaps in the data, so we've been trying to pull data from news sites to identify when and where incidents of hate occur. So what we've been doing so far is using, it's called the GNews API, which is an open source alternative to Google News. But basically, you can make requests to that API with different search terms and get back ideally reported incidents or stories that kind of meet those search terms. So you can see in the screenshot here, also feel free to go to the URL on the right, that, you know, we're having mixed success. And, you know, we're getting a lot of things that are, I think, relevant, and, you know, some things that are not so relevant. And so we're kind of working through, kind of going through those and trying out different searches to see if we can really nail it down to be able to get to kind of hone in on incidents when they actually occur. You know, a couple of limitations to this. One, we're subject to kind of the news cycle and you know, the incident kind of rising to the point of where it's picked up by local or national media. Also, you know, with the API, like, you know, technically speaking, we're on the free plan, so we get 100 calls to it per day. So we've kind of scheduled those, but with our combinations of like search terms and places. You know, we have a few thousand combinations, so we're kind of running the script intermittently to try to pick up all of those. In terms of the technology, this was just, this is a simple Python Django app. It just runs on a scheduled basis. It hits the API with kind of, you can see on the left, a screenshot of the code. There's also the GitHub repository on the previous slide. But basically just combines all the terms and hits them one at a time to the API to see what we get back. And then saves that to a database and then writes it to a running Excel file, which you can also see that we can then go through and try to find what's relevant, what's not, and see kind of what's working in terms of being able to pick up data to address those gaps. And then next steps, I think, you know, we're further refining the search terms, but we're also going to apply the same approach to looking at Twitter through their API and analyzing tweet text for the same type of thing.
Okay,
Give it
thanks,
back
Rob.
to Tia.
Yeah. So just to really wrap things up, we just wanted to talk about quickly just, you know, how you can help us. That's, you know, encouraging first and foremost people to report. Please visit our site. You'll see it's an experience builder site, and the first thing on there is the survey. So please encourage people to take the survey, even if they're only a witness. Again, witnesses can also report. You know, encourage people just to share their hate crime data or incident data and data sources with us. If you're interested in volunteering, either as a student or even a professional, and we'll take you. Please, you know, help us spread the word and just conduct outreach. That would be great. So all of our info is on the bottom and also on the next slide. And that's it from us. So thank you so much and happy GIS Day, everybody.
Okay, well, thank you all for a great presentation. We do have a few questions. So I'll start with the one in the Q&A window that you can see. A heart seems like strange symbology for hate locations. I was wondering what the intention behind the heart symbology might have been.
Well, you know, it has a hole in it, if you notice. So there's a hole in the heart. So it's a wounded heart. That's kind of, that was our thought behind it. And also eventually we hope those holes get filled and all we see are hearts. You know, in other mapping projects that we do, maybe we're mapping love and we're not mapping hate. So that's what it was.
All right, very good. And I had another question come in. Can you tell more about your outreach strategies to publicize the site? Are you looking for partnerships? You mentioned Esri, but are there other ways?
Definitely. And I think that's where we've really struggled the most. You know, we are GIS professionals. You know, we've mostly worked for the county or other organizations, you know, so we've not had a lot of experience or had the opportunity to, you know, interact with a lot of community organizations. I mean, certainly since we got started in this, we've met many more than we ever have, which has been great. But we have also learned that this is you know, a very specialized field. And so, you know, all the help that we can get, if you're interested in partnering with us or you know an organization that you think would be interested, you know, we definitely want to talk to you.
Okay, great. And another question that came in, do you review and edit submissions to remove any personal information people might enter into the form?
Yes, we do. So we make sure that there is no PPI information out there. And like Christine was showing as well, you know, our survey is anonymous. And also when someone enters an address, any address, or if you know, happen to drop the pin on your home or your work location, the locator will automatically move it to the nearest intersection. So it's never going to show the exact location, but it's a nearest location that the incident occurred.
Okay, great. And I'll ask you one last question. Is this data being shared with relevant jurisdictions?
Not yet. I mean, we'd love to get there. I mean, we'd love to be kind of like a two-way street, right? Where people are sharing with us and we're sharing with them. So not at the moment, but that's definitely a goal.
Okay, and one last one. We have a moment. Somebody posted in chat that they think LocateHateLA map should incorporate baseline data from what the county or maybe other jurisdictions have already captured. Are you looking at capturing that official data?
Well, the question is if they will share it with us. I guess is what I will say.
Okay.
And we would love to add that. That would be great. I think it would be help paint a more complete picture, obviously. So that would be wonderful.
Okay, well, we are at time. I want to thank you again for your presentation. It's a great project, an important project. We will take a 5-minute break and return at the top of the bottom of the hour with a presentation on the Equity Explorer. So we'll see you in just a few minutes.